There are moments in life that test us in ways we never imagined. For Margaret Chen, a woman who had weathered 63 years of joy and sorrow, one such moment arrived on a crisp October afternoon when her daughter Victoria appeared at her door after 11 years of silence. Margaret had raised her grandson James alone since he was 5 years old. Victoria had left without warning, without explanation, abandoning her autistic son to chase a life Margaret never fully understood. The pain of that abandonment had carved deep lines into Margaret's face. But she had never spoken ill of Victoria to James. She simply loved him, fiercely and completely. James was different, yes. He didn't speak much, but when he did, his words carried weight. He saw patterns where others saw chaos. By 16, this quiet boy had taught himself to code, building an app that connected people with special needs to specialized services. Within months, investors noticed. The app sold for $6 million. $6 million. Margaret had cried when James showed her the number on the screen. Not because of the money, but because she saw her grandson's gentle smile, the way he said, "Now you can rest, Grandma. Now, I can take care of you." But rest would have to wait. 2 weeks after the sale went public, Victoria returned. She stood at Margaret's door with perfectly styled hair, expensive clothes, and a man in a suit beside her. "A lawyer, Victoria said, her voice smooth as silk. "We need to talk about James's money." Margaret's hands trembled as she gripped the doorframe. Victoria claimed that as James's mother, she had legal rights to manage his finances. The lawyer spoke of guardianship, fiduciary responsibility, past sacrifices. Margaret felt the world tilting beneath her feet. That evening, Margaret sat across from her own lawyer, Harold Brennan, a kind man who had helped her with James's special needs trust years ago. Harold's face was grave. "Margaret, I won't lie to you. Victoria has a case. She's his biological mother. She could argue that as his parent, she should have been involved in these decisions. We might lose." Margaret felt panic rising in her chest like floodwater. Lose? After everything? After the sleepless nights when James was small and couldn't communicate his needs? After the therapy sessions, the patience, the unconditional love? James had been sitting quietly in the corner of Harold's office, his fingers tracing patterns on his tablet. Now, he looked up, his dark eyes calm and knowing. "Grandma," he said softly, "just let her talk." Margaret stared at her grandson, confused. Harold frowned, but James simply returned to his tablet, a small smile playing at his lips. The meeting was scheduled for the following week. Victoria arrived with her lawyer, impeccably dressed, her smile confident. Margaret's heart ached looking at her daughter, remembering the little girl who once brought her dandelions, who had been so full of promise before life hardened her. Victoria's lawyer began immediately, laying out their position. Victoria spoke of her maternal rights, her desire to reconnect with her son, her concern for his future. She was smooth, practiced. Margaret felt Harold tense beside her. Then James spoke. "Mom," he said quietly, using the word for the first time in 11 years. Victoria's face lit up with hope. "I want to show you something." He opened his tablet and turned it toward Victoria. On the screen was a bank statement. But it wasn't James's account. It was Victoria's. "This is from 3 months ago," James said, his voice steady. "Before anyone knew about my app. Before the sale was public." Victoria's face went pale. "You contacted my business partner, pretending to be a journalist," James continued. "You asked about upcoming tech sales. You asked specifically about apps created by minors. You were looking for this opportunity before it even existed." The lawyer shifted uncomfortably. Harold leaned forward, suddenly interested. "You also contacted 2 other families in similar situations over the past year," James said, scrolling through his tablet. "Families with special needs children who had come into money. You consulted lawyers about parental rights. You researched case law." Victoria stood abruptly, but James kept talking, his calm voice filling the room. "I'm autistic, Mom. Not stupid. I notice patterns. I see connections. When Grandma told me you were back, I started looking. It took me 4 days to find everything." Margaret watched her daughter's face crumble. watched the careful facade crack apart. Victoria tried to speak, but no words came. Her lawyer was already packing his briefcase, his expression disgusted. "I don't want you to go to jail," James said softly, "but I need you to leave. Not just us, but those other families too. Stop hunting for opportunities in other people's pain." Victoria's eyes filled with tears, but Margaret couldn't tell if they were real or just another performance. After a long moment, Victoria grabbed her purse and fled the office, her lawyer following quickly behind. In the silence that followed, Margaret reached for her grandson's hand. It was shaking slightly, the only sign that this calm young man was still just a boy who had confronted his abandonment head-on. "When did you know?" Margaret asked softly. "I always knew she might come back," James said. "When money got involved, I knew she would. So I prepared." Harold cleared his throat, his professional demeanor finally breaking into an amazed smile. "That was remarkable, James. Truly remarkable." As they walked to the car that evening, Margaret felt exhausted but peaceful. The sunset painted the sky in shades of orange and gold, and James walked beside her with his characteristic steady gait. "You know," Margaret said, "you could have destroyed her." "You had enough evidence," James nodded. "But you taught me that revenge and justice aren't the same thing." She needed to stop, "But she's still my mom. She's still your daughter. Maybe one day she'll figure out what really matters." Margaret stopped walking and pulled her grandson into a tight embrace. This beautiful soul, who saw the world so differently yet understood it so deeply. This boy who could have used his brilliant mind for anger but chose wisdom instead. "Your mother lost something precious when she left you," Margaret whispered. "I gained everything." That night, Margaret sat on her porch, watching James through the window as he worked on his next project, something about helping elderly people stay connected with technology. She thought about kindness and cruelty, about second chances and consequences, about the strange way life tests us and rewards us in equal measure. Victoria had come seeking money, wielding her biological connection like a weapon. But she had underestimated the boy she abandoned. More importantly, she had underestimated the power of the love that had raised him. James had defeated her without cruelty, with nothing but truth and calm insistence on what was right. That, Margaret thought, was the real victory. Not the money, not even the protection of their little family, but the proof that love and patience had created something remarkable. A young man who could face betrayal with wisdom rather than rage. Margaret closed her eyes and smiled. "Let her talk," James had said. And in letting Victoria reveal herself, in giving her enough rope without anger or vengeance, James had proven he understood something that took most people a lifetime to learn. The truth, spoken calmly and clearly, is more powerful than any revenge. And love, real love, leaves a mark that no amount of absence can erase.